Have you ever stopped to think about how fast things can escalate? How one single border incident can suddenly blow up into this major international crisis?
It's frighteningly quick sometimes.
Yeah, and the impact on ordinary people is almost immediate and often widespread. It's a tough reality. And that's exactly what we saw unfold with the pretty significant border clashes between Thailand and Cambodia back in 2025. So for this deep dive, what we want to do is really cut through all the noise. We're going to give you a clear picture of what actually happened, drawing directly from the source material you've shared with us.
Right, we'll look at the key events, the timeline.
Exactly, and the specific weapons involved, that's crucial, and also the diplomatic maneuvering, the efforts to eventually reach a ceasefire.
So by the end, you should have a really solid grasp of this complex situation and, importantly, why it matters.
Okay, so where do we even begin with this? It seems things spiraled so fast. Our sources point to May 28th, 2025. The location, this place called the Emerald Triangle.
That's the initial flashpoint mentioned, yes.
And the reports say a Cambodian soldier was the first fatality. Then, almost instantly, it seems, the accusations started flying.
Oh, immediately. Both sides blaming the other for intruding, for starting the fight. It's a familiar pattern, unfortunately.
But it didn't just stay as like a localized skirmish or just pointing fingers, did it? What were the immediate knock-on effects? Did it jump straight to bigger state actions?
That's what's really striking in the reports we have. How quickly a seemingly, relatively small incident triggered these huge reactions. It absolutely went beyond just skirmishes. The sources indicate it spiraled into serious economic and diplomatic tension almost straight away.
Like what specifically?
Well, things like both countries were calling their ambassadors, and even, quite unusually, Cambodia banning Thai films.
Wow, a film ban. That's unexpected. But potent, I suppose, as a non-military signal.
Exactly. It shows how these things bleed over from the military sphere into, everything else. Diplomatic, economic, cultural ties, they all get hit. It wasn't just boots on the ground, it was a full state-level response.
It really illustrates how interconnected it all is. Okay, so that's the initial spark in May. But things got much, much worse in July, didn't they? That seems to be where the human cost really mounted up.
Tragically, yes. July was the major escalation point.
Our sources detail this incident on July 23rd. A Thai patrol near Chongan Ma, that's in Ubon Ratchathani province, they apparently stepped on a landmine.
Yes, injuring 5 soldiers, one of them critically. And the response, according to the material we've looked at, was immediate and severe.
The very next morning, July 24th.
That's right. Heavy exchanges of fire reported. And crucially, this wasn't just small arms anymore. The reports mentioned air power, specifically Thai F-16s being used. And significantly, Cambodian BM-21 rocket launchers.
BM-21s, those are the multiple rocket launchers, right? Not exactly precise.
Not at all. And the reports are quite clear. They weren't just targeting military positions. They were hitting civilian areas. Things like petrol stations, even hospitals in Sisaket province.
Hospitals. That deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure raises huge questions, doesn't it? About the rules of engagement, the humanitarian impact.
Absolutely. It shifts the nature of the conflict significantly. And the human cost was just devastating. The sources point to at least 33 fatalities combined, including civilians.
33 dead, and the displacement.
Staggering. Over 200,000 people forced to flee their homes. Just imagine the chaos and fear in those border zones.
200,000. That's an enormous number for what started as a border clash. It really drives home the impact on everyday life.
It does. And Thailand's reaction reflects that severity. They immediately closed the border, declared special laws in some of those border areas. A major response.
Okay. Given that scale of destruction, the use of heavy weapons, the civilian impact, let's unpack the arsenal a bit more. What specific weapons do our sources say Cambodia deployed? Understanding the tools helps understand the impact.
Definitely. The sources give us a fairly detailed picture. For those long-range attacks, the BM-21 Grad MLRS stands out. Those are the 122mm rockets we mentioned.
The ones hitting civilian areas.
Precisely. And, using a system like the Grad, known for area saturation, against civilian targets like petrol stations and hospitals. It suggests, potentially, a tactic aimed at causing widespread disruption, maybe even psychological impact, not just hitting military targets.
So, beyond the Grad.
The reports also mention Cambodian forces deploying PHL-81 and PHL-90B systems, similar multiple rocket launcher types, plus various 122 to 152mm field guns, likely of Chinese or Soviet origin, standard heavy artillery from the main Cambodian army arsenal.
And on the ground. for direct combat.
We see reports of Russian-made BMP-3 combat vehicles being used in the conflict zones.
BMP-3s, those are tracked infantry fighting vehicles, quite heavily armed, aren't they?
Yes, amphibious too. Their presence suggests readiness for, mobile ground combat, potentially more offensive operations. It signals a capacity for escalation on the ground.
And the basic infantry weapons.
Predominantly Type 56 assault rifles. That's the Chinese AK-47 variant. Reports mention different versions, Type 56-1, Type 56-2, and also the Type 69 RPG, the shoulder-fired rocket launcher. So a mix of standard infantry arms alongside those heavier area impact systems.
It paints a picture of a conflict equipped for both direct clashes and, disturbingly, indiscriminate long-range attacks. Considering this level of violence and the types of weapons used, how did they ever manage to step back from the brink? How did they move towards peace?
Well, peace might be a strong word initially. De-escalation, perhaps. It involves some serious diplomatic heavy lifting.
That sounds like it must have been a very fragile situation, even with top-level talks.
Extremely fragile. But the sources highlight a key meeting fairly quickly after that major July 24th escalation. On July 28th, the Thai Prime Minister, Phumtham Wechayachai, met with the Cambodian Prime Minister, Hun Manet.
Where did they meet?
In Kuala Lumpur, and they apparently agreed to an immediate and unconditional ceasefire. It was supposed to take effect that same night.
Was there external pressure involved? Often there is in these situations.
Yes, and the sources point to a specific intervention. The U.S. ambassador, reportedly acting on behalf of President Donald Trump at the time, stepped in.
Really? What was the message?
The warning was apparently quite direct. Continued fighting could seriously impact trade negotiations with the United States.
Ah, so leveraging economic ties, that's significant pressure.
It certainly adds another dimension to the ceasefire push.
Okay, so they agree to a ceasefire, there's international pressure.
Right.
But did it actually hold on the ground? You mentioned landmines earlier playing a role in the escalation. What happened afterwards? Were there violations?
That's the really difficult part. The sources indicate that yes, challenges persisted almost immediately after the ceasefire was announced. There were reports of frequent violations,
Specifically?
particularly these continued landmine explosions. Soldiers on both sides were still getting injured by mines, even after July 28th.
And how did the two sides explain that? Because that could easily reignite everything.
Exactly. And here, the narratives diverged quite sharply, according to the reports. Thailand was demanding Cambodia take responsibility for these incidents, implying new mines were being laid or old ones were being cleared effectively near the border.
And Cambodia's response?
Cambodia denied responsibility. They attributed the explosions to old mines left over from previous wars, a huge problem in that region, of course, and stressed that they were actually undertaking demining efforts.
That divergence itself is a source of tension. It really highlights the legacy issue, doesn't it? The fighting might stop, but these hidden dangers, the mines, they remain and keep fueling mistrust.
This is a perfect example of that complex legacy. The official batter ends, but the physical scars on the land continue to pose a real, immediate threat and can easily sour relations again.
So despite these ongoing issues and disagreements, were there any positive steps to solidify the ceasefire, maybe involve third parties?
There was a step forward in early August. An agreement was reached for ASEAN observers to monitor the situation. Malaysia was tasked with coordinating this effort. And alongside that, both Thailand and Cambodia agreed to set up their own monitoring teams. So an attempt at least to build some verification mechanism.
Okay, observers on the ground, that's something.
And one other detail the sources mention, which is quite poignant, I think, is a religious ceremony held in Phnom Penh for the Cambodian soldiers who had died, praying for peace. It kind of underscores the human cost again, even amidst the diplomatic moves.
Right, a reminder of the real lives affected. Well, this has been quite a journey through a really intense period. We started with that single incident in May 2025 at the Emerald Triangle and saw how quickly it exploded.
Spiraling into those heavy clashes in July.
Yeah, involving serious weaponry like the BM-21s, hitting military and civilian targets, and forcing, over 200,000 people from their homes.
A massive displacement.
Then the diplomatic push in Kuala Lumpur, the ceasefire agreement, helped along by that international, specifically U.S., pressure.
But a fragile ceasefire, as we discussed.
Exactly. Still grappling with those landmine incidents, the different stories about responsibility, it shows how uneasy the peace was, and probably still is to some extent.
Definitely.
So hopefully this deep dive, drawing straight from the source materials, has given you a much clearer, more nuanced picture of this complex event, a concise but comprehensive understanding of what went down.
understanding the sequence, the tools, the human cost, and the diplomacy.
Absolutely. And maybe one final thought to leave you with as we wrap up. Think about how conflicts like this, even when they're officially over, ceasefire signed, diplomats shaking hands, how they still leave behind these silent threats, these persistent dangers like the landmines or the lingering resentments and mistrust.
They don't just vanish.
No. So what does that tell us about the true cost of war? Not just the immediate casualties and destruction, but the long tail, and what kind of ongoing work, complex work is needed to get beyond just stopping the fighting, to achieve real lasting stability, something to mull over.